not only is running a company really difficult when you're a woman and a person of color, but getting to the point where you're in the position to run a company also presents challenges.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to We Are Duffree's Perspectives.
We have a lot of responsibility. We reach thousands and millions of people through the projects that we're doing.
We are a creative agency maximizing the positive impact on businesses, society, and our planet.
So if you currently look at all communication marketing campaigns, it's not always representing society.
Radical change needs to happen now. Otherwise, brands and companies are going to get left behind.
You know, if you're a marketing manager, if you're in a senior position, you're an opportunity maker. So how can you redistribute those opportunities in an interesting way?
Every week, founder Mitchell talks to visionaries and changemakers who are shaking up the status quo.
We create content for every living soul on this planet.
Get ready to be launched into a new perspective.
Ready?
Ready.
New York or Amsterdam?
Both.
Pre-COVID or post-COVID?
I don't know what post-COVID life will be like yet. So let's say pre-COVID.
What is your biggest strength?
Resilience.
And what is something you wish you could master?
Art. I wish I was a bit more creatively artistic. Yeah.
Who is your inspiration?
I have a few. And Kim Kardashian, Jennifer Lopez, Jessica Alba.
Oh, we want to hear more about it.
Well, it's interesting. I naturally gravitate towards their profiles. So when I know them from pop culture, but they have all three become such business forces. And I think when I just naturally am reading a lot of articles about them, and I get asked this question, like, who are your role models? And then I started, these names always popped into my head. And I think it's because I see an element of myself in them, in that they're minority women, first of all, and somewhat underestimated, I think, but have been managed to really have a tremendous success and
even now they're being underestimated.
Yeah.
Christina, such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes. My name's Christina Calje. I'm born and raised in New York City. I am an entrepreneur a couple of times over. I've lived in New York and London and now Amsterdam for a couple of years. And then, the things that I've been working on most recently, I co-founded a startup that's operating within the media space, looking to bring a bit more inclusivity and personalization to the video experience for shoppers online. Besides that, I'm also doing angel investing and working to become more of a voice and advocate for underrepresented founders here in the Netherlands that are looking to get funding and to launch businesses.
That's
so I'm doing
so
a lot
cool.
of stuff.
You do a lot of stuff, yeah. One of the things that really tips out is you're focusing on inclusivity, making the media space more inclusive. Yeah. It's something that we also try and do.
Yeah, it's also surprising to me here in the Netherlands and also in other countries, UK or other regions, UK, Germany, France, that there's really a lot of there's a full spectrum of communities that exist, and most of the media and advertising really does, at least until this point, there's sort of a sea change happening, but until this point has really catered towards a single narrative. And growing up in New York City and being surrounded by such diversity of thought, socioeconomic status, religion, ethnicity, it already opened my eyes from a really young age that there are so many people out there that don't necessarily look like me, think like me. And I think that that's always shaped my worldview and made me comfortable with a lot of different types of people, but also made me a bit more aware, I guess I should say, about the fact that there's not a lot of representation in a lot of the advertising that we're seeing. And recently have in any sort of press that I've been invited to speak about my own experience, that's something that I really want to bring to the conversation. And a couple of times now, I've gotten this reaction like, well, the Netherlands is not really that diverse. So is that really a problem that we need to solve for? And for me, it's sort of surprising because, well, it's very surprising. One, because I always think of the Netherlands as a pretty open and welcoming country. And beyond that, I just see that there's so many different communities, Moroccan, Turkish, Indonesian, Surinamese. And I, for whatever reason, am surprised that for whatever reason, those communities are not always considered Dutch.
Yeah.
And as a result, that representation is not really expected in leadership positions. So that's something that I try to bring more up to bring it to the forefront. I mean, it's starting with on a more general level with the Zwarte Piet conversations and the Black Lives Matter movement moving from the States over here to Europe. It's created a lot more conversation around it, but that's more in the general population, and that's not really so specific in terms of professional opportunities, and certainly not in entrepreneurship. So that's where I feel there's a void that I can sort of fill in talking about my own experience and what I think could help the problems.
What attracted you to co-found your company and enter the founder of the tech scene?
Yeah, I also launched a company when I was in the UK. So my whole background really is in finance. So before I was in the tech space, I worked at an investment bank for eight years or so in New York and in London. So my background was very specific in terms of industry. And at a certain point, I just felt a bit disenfranchised with the products, with the people surrounding me, with the goals of working in finance. And I moved more towards tech. And then in order to facilitate this switch in industry, I really had to create a whole new network and also almost a portfolio of work that would, one, test it for me personally to see if I enjoyed working in tech as much as I thought I would, and also to sort of build enough of a foundation to eventually move into what I thought I wanted to do was move into one of these, the Google, Facebook, LinkedIn's of the world back then. This is maybe 8 years ago. And so to do that, I started my own company that was just essentially a consultancy that helped US-based companies to launch or expand their business footprint in Europe.
That's amazing, but it's also hard work.
Yes.
Because I know myself how hard you need to work to run a company. But then what are the challenges for women trying to enact or to set up a company like that, and especially a person of color?
Not only is running a company really difficult when you're a woman and a person of color, but getting to the point where you're in the position to run a company also presents challenges. So I think that's what I always try to synthesize in terms of sort of best practices and tips for people. I just remember at a really early age, I was very lucky because my mom is one of those tiger moms who always realized the importance of education and realized that you're not bound by, you're not defined by the boundaries that exist for you at that moment, that you can create your own future.
I really like that.
I'm not sure if it was ever said to me in so many words, but the actions that she took created that mindset for me. So even from elementary school age, which is 6 years old, I was taking exams that would eventually allow me to have a privately funded education. And that's something that I was able to benefiting from the age of 6 until 12. And then from there, there's these specialized high schools that you can test into. I was able to get a great high school education as a result of that. And then for my undergrad and my business school, I was able to get full tuition and grant scholarships to fund my education. So instead of having to pay $100,000 for an education, which I couldn't afford at the time, through doing some research, figuring out ways to tap into what could be seen as a sort of, not weakness, but a challenging situation. So, being an underrepresented minority, there are also ways to take advantage of that. Looking for programs that are trying to support those sorts of profiles. You're also able to stand out a lot more if you can build up the confidence to go up to people and just introduce yourself and try to find commonalities and common grounds and mentors. And that's something that was instilled in me from a really early age that has helped me throughout my career and now, especially as an entrepreneur.
You're vocal about obstacles for venture capital for women. How can we incentivize change?
What I see working in other regions is economic incentives that try to stimulate a certain area of growth. So in the UK, you have investments in innovation. In the Netherlands, we also have certain funds that are that you can sort of co-fund alongside the government in high growth companies. So there's an economic incentive. One, if it's a co-investment, then there's sort of increasing the return on their investment because there's more funds going in. They have to give less money to the startup, and it's matched by the government. Another way is to have tax breaks, certain programs that will give tax breaks if you invest in a certain high-growth company. So that's a lot of great reasons that align with the lowering risk and increasing return on investment, which are the priorities of VCs. If we can take something like that to a more of a diversity initiative, so meaning having some of these funds and programs focus on matching funds of investment to female-led or Black, brown, yellow founded companies, or tax incentive programs for those types of companies that have very strict criteria around diversity. Those are ways also to, in my opinion, really think about how to help the VCs do their job better. Yeah. Because it is a lot of work, or they say that it's a lot of work to find these founders and invest in these founders. Whether that's true or not, I'm not quite sure, but I don't know if that I agree with that.
Your advocacy for more leadership roles for minorities is incredible. How do we encourage other people from positions of privilege to use it to lift others up?
I think, part of it is the first step, opening your network up. So what I hear a lot of times is not necessarily that people are against bringing a broader profile into their company. What I hear the most often is, well, where do I find female candidates? Where do I find ethnic minority candidates? And I think the first step is if you can already start building relationships with folks who don't necessarily look like you and don't have the same culture as you, that's going to make it feel much more accessible. That's going to broaden your network, and that's going to be the best way to facilitate those connections. So that's, to me, a great, simple first step towards understanding that it's not it shouldn't be something scary to try to do. It's not something to be defensive about. It's simply bringing more perspective to your team that's different. So let's make sure that people on our team are also reflecting the folks that we're trying to market to and sell our product to. And so I think that's another way to rationalize why it's important to have a really diverse group of team members, and whether that's ethnicity, gender, culture, lifestyle, age, all of having that well-rounded team is really going to bring all those different elements so that you can create the best product and sell that to people.
What are your goals for the future?
Having impact, if I can summarize it.
Yeah.
To be able to have impact personally with my own professional goals and more broadly in society, to have a sort of longer lasting footprint than my own.
Well, I think your vision is there and you're taking action as well. So
trying to. There's a lot to do.
Time will tell, but I think there's a lot of positivity ahead on your road.
I hope so, yeah.
Christina, thank you very much for being our guest. Really appreciate it. I think you're a true inspiration and a role model yourself.
Thank you.
And I hope we can, with sharing your story, inspire others.
Yeah, absolutely. And your own story in launching We Are Duffree, really ambitious and exciting to see what you guys are working on. So thank you for including me in this series.